So sad you're sick. I hope you feel better.
Thanks. I'm so sorry that I forgot. I feel absolutely horrible.
So Rachel's here via Skype.
Yes. She's a little under the weather, but she's here, so we're all here today.
Okay. So,
And this is discussion 7, and this is group 3, and my name's Caitlin.
and I'm Braylon Menzies.
I'm Jordan.
I'm Lexi.
I'm Rachel.
Okay. So, how do we want to start this?
Let's start by talking maybe about, like, we all did the video. Do you just want to talk about, like, really quickly your ideas about it? Like, acquisition versus learning, and if you thought that was cool or not.
Video on for you.
Or maybe, one thing that kind of I was a little confused about was comprehensible input and affective filter helping you understand the SOIP theories.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little confused about how that connected. Like, I wrote about it. Yeah, exactly.
But what does it stand for?
I don't know what it stands for. I don't know what it stands for.
Okay.
But it was the
Structured instruction, no.
I thought it was something like that.
yeah. but
Sheltered instruction,
what's the O? SOIP. It had to do with the I do, you do, we do.
Yes.
I know that. That was one of the strategies.
I knew it had to do
Okay.
with the form of instruction that you'd work specifically
Well-
with ELL students, I thought.
do you want, okay, we can both answer this.
Okay, because this was our thing.
Yeah.
So, with the comprehensible input, if that's like if the SOIP is the I do, we do, you do sort of thing, the comprehensible input is what the teacher is like giving to you in class, and the effective filters are determine whether or not you like receive that input,
Yeah.
also how well you receive it. So they talked about like if students are nervous, if students have anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
this and that, then that's considered a filter and that's up. So the comprehensible input isn't gonna, it's either just not gonna go in or it's not gonna go in as effectively.
Mhm.
So the SOIP strategies won't work, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's kind of
Because
how
was
it connected. It
Yeah.
won't work if those.
No,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
think they will work because the nature of these strategies is to lower anxiety to hopefully practically zero.
Yeah.
And because they provide such extensive background knowledge and support, they provide a lot of scaffolding, and because of that scaffolding, the anxiety of your students go down, and the task becomes so much more accessible for them.
Oh, okay.
That's
like that.
That's how I thought about it.
I like that. That makes.
I
a
kind
lot
of
more
interpret it
sense.
either ways because it's like the effective filter.
Mhm.
Thank you. That's like the blocks that you put up as a student, and so like even us in college, we have those like I don't want to go to class. This class is boring. I really want to take a nap. Like my effective filter is I don't want to go to class. It's gonna be boring. So
If you go
I
to
think-
class, then it's like hard to get it.
yeah, definitely. So it's like those blocks you have built up that you can't get over when you're trying to like learn or you're trying to teach so that students can learn. And so it was just trying to keep like that low anxiety, very comfortable atmosphere so that your students feel comfortable so they can learn no matter what
And
they're feeling.
I understand what you're saying, but I was more I agree with that. But also there's like the effective filters that the teacher doesn't really have control over, because it said a lot of them would has to do with like depression also and like things at home, which are that's why I was thinking like maybe it wouldn't work. So I guess it maybe depends on the filter, or like how intense the filter is. Or
I
something.
assume
I guess the
like-
filter and
Yeah.
the comprehensible input. It was just how it connected to the SOIP.
And then just talking about how a lot of filters, like definitely teachers can control. Like if you don't want to learn material or you don't want to learn new language and you have all this anxiety with that, like there's only so much. Yeah, if you have no motivation to learn a new language and you're trying to sit there and to teach them, they're not going to want to do that. So I took it as more of like almost like a negative thing to it, which I was like, okay, we need to get rid of this. Like, no, every student's loved. Like,
Yeah.
No, but like this was in my notes for later. But I remember taking Spanish in high school, and I connected to this idea of the
effective filter.
affective is it
Yeah.
filter so much because like I had so much anxiety going into Spanish class.
I do not
understood
want to
what
speak.
I did not want to speak. I understood what people said to me, but like when I tried to say something, it just like nothing.
Oh.
Yeah. So like we did in my Spanish class, we did like improvs, not improvs, but like sometimes we have them written.
Presentations.
Yeah, but like okay, so for example, we pretend to be going through airport security or like buying buying airport ticket and then we go through security, but we would do it in front of the class and we'd like present it and everyone's was a little different and it's like you have to have this, this, and this in there. You can add more if you want or this is the bare minimum.
Got it.
And for like first year you're able to have your notes. Like the first one you're able to have
To
your
help you
notes
guide you.
to help guide you. And then like for the later
Take it away.
ones, none. And I had so much anxiety. I was like, Ola, Meya, I just had such a hard time with it, and like I knew it, and I would study it with my mom, and I would like, my mom and I would sit there for like an hour or two the night before, literally going back and forth trying to memorize this, and like when I got there, it was still like so hard.
Oh
and
my
that's why I
goodness.
was saying like the effective filter doesn't have to do with how capable you are. It's just about performance.
Yeah.
So
Which we definitely know has nothing to do with how smart a student is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I did that last week.
So that was my connection.
I had such a different experience in Spanish. Like
Oh,
we
yeah?
did presentations every chapter, and that was
Yeah.
like every week and a half. And we had to do ours without notes too.
Mhm.
But it was such like a comfortable environment that it wasn't a big deal. So I'm like so glad that their Spanish experience was like
Well,
that.
I don't think it was the environment was uncomfortable. My class, it wasn't that my class was uncomfortable. I just had anxiety about
Yeah.
Spanish. I had anxiety like it's a whole new language. It's like
Yeah.
foreign. I don't know what I'm doing, and then I just like wasn't processing. I had that anxiety about like getting it wrong while I'm presenting in front of my peers. I guess.
I think I had a fear of failure.
Yeah, fear
and
of
so like the fear of failure stopped me from actually speaking, and it didn't help me
Mm-hmm.
move along.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Then maybe this kind of leads into my first question about Crashin, because I really liked his videos and I really thought what he said was like really poignant and I really connected with it. Like I was like, that totally is right. Like you kind of had one of those moments where you're like, that is like my Spanish career. So
Yeah.
I totally like did the same thing. So how do you guys plan on creating an environment where language acquisition can actually occur? Because acquisition is different than learning the language. Acquisition is where you actually acquire deeply and understand. So how do you guys plan on creating that environment? Take a sec.
I think that's probably what my Spanish teacher was trying to do. Like when you're hearing someone talk to you in Spanish and then like you're trying to talk to them in Spanish, I think that's what she was trying to do, but at the same time it was like hard because I had that anxiety. So I don't know how I would do that. Let's think.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it talks a lot of and his ideas say that it's important to keep using and
Socially.
developing the first language too. So maybe like in ways that you can incorporate the first language to maybe try and reduce the anxiety.
And that increases understanding, which is
Because
what
you can
comprehensible understanding.
And then definitely just keeping it like a very stress-free environment and maybe not doing like test and the whole like stereotypical, okay, here's a piece of paper, show me what you know, like test in different ways. I thought there's like so many ways you could incorporate that without it actually feeling like a test that would be like really helpful for ELLs.
Maybe non-graded work or like non-graded discussion with your class,
Yeah.
especially for elementary school. I feel like I remember in elementary school I didn't really know what I'm getting grade on. I just kind of like do it and then it'd be like, oh, you get a check plus.
I
for
got
the
a
year.
star.
I got a star. And so like being like holding them accountable, yes, but like just this low risk environment where like they're not getting graded like test wise. They're not like, oh, you got a 25 out of 30 on this discussion kind of thing.
Totally.
Just like free environment where they're able to acquire that language.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think just making them an environment where they can discuss it without feeling like they're gonna be discouraged or they're gonna be shut down because they think they're gonna do it wrong.
Definitely.
Because I felt the same way. I always felt like I was gonna do bad when I spoke it, rather than understanding it, because I could understand it really well. But I also had the anxiety of trying to like just speak it. But if I had the opportunity to be in a discussion where I wasn't being graded on it, but I had an opportunity to try and speak it, I think it would have been a lot better.
Definitely. And that talked a lot about how like keeping things social was like the key. If you can like connect it to like what Yvonne did like in the last chapter was like, oh, her students really are talking about like TV. So they started like talking out loud. Like it really connected this section or this discussion was about keeping like things social, so your students can develop and acquire the language that way. So that's obviously really critical too.
Nice job pulling that in. I agree with
I
that.
I don't even know what I did.
Well, this question is referring to Braylon's post, but it can be for everyone. So you were talking about the connection with the input theory and the zone of proximal development. So
Actually, I was just about to say something about her
Really?
question that talked about that. Can you say your question?
no, you're fine. So the input theory obviously is, or to you receive as much, depending on your affective filter, you will like receive information, and then the zone of proximal development is to like give input that is like a little bit higher than your range of what you do know to
further your
to
knowledge.
to just keep going. So my question is, do you think that those that combination of the two apply to language learning, language acquisition, or both? And so, well, what I'm thinking, because I think you were talking about language learning, and I think that is for sure true, but I was just wondering if you guys think that for language acquisition it would be the same thing, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, so your question was about the how we can create an environment that allows students to acquire language. And I was actually thinking that the input theory, Krashen's input theory, really does talk about that. And he talks about how you need to, and it's practically the same thing as the zone of proximal development, like the same thing. But he's talking about how comprehensible input needs to be just slightly above enough to challenge the student. But it's obviously not going to be the same level, so it's going to not be like I plus 0. It's going to be I plus 1. But then if it's like so beyond the person, it's just like noise. So it's like I plus 10, which is like way too much. And so I was thinking that the SIOP model, I know some of you guys are not in huge favor, but I think that it really allows students to understand because it provides so much background knowledge, and so that it's not just noise. And I think that by providing a lot of extra scaffolding, you're making your comprehensible input just slightly above where your English language learners are.
It's definitely like about making sure you have that foundation that's just so critical, and whether that be in developing your first language or your second language or both at the same time. I think that just definitely plays a big role into this. Like you can't just let one go. You need to keep developing both, no matter where you are on the
I was kind of thinking just with acquisition, I wasn't sure if I don't know, I kind of think the acquisition can occur even if it's higher than the zone of proximal development. I don't know, I just always think of like my friends who like studied abroad in Spain, and they just like come back knowing way more than they ever would have like in class or anything. And even with like, I know that this isn't second language, but with babies, they learn their language from people talking, and it's like what adults talk about is like a lot. I don't know, I feel like that's like higher than the zone. I don't know. So I was just thinking of that.
I know where she's going.
What?
I know where you're going.
You know where I'm going?
Yeah.
Because we might have had the same question. Well, what did I talk about? It was that Krashen's, how do you say his name? Krashen.
Crashin. I like his name.
That's his name?
Crashin. That's
Crashin.
how I pronounced it when I read it out loud.
I don't know. I just kind of read it and recognized it. Krashen. Do you remember what it's called? His like, I don't remember what it's called. That's really bad. And it's like children learn different things at different times. So they learn how to use like plurals, like I.
Got it.
I have cats, or I don't know.
Oh, it's like I had cats, like that change, that subtle change.
I think it was like
I wrote about it.
like broked. It was
broked.
broked and broke. They didn't understand broken.
They
It's like past
automatically kind of understand these things, but then they learn the irregular, and then they apply the irregular to like a whole bunch of different
That's
situations.
overgeneralizing the rule.
There you go. It was in psych. Yeah, educational psychology.
And it comes up with lots of other things too.
So, like, overgeneralizing this rule, and so, I forget where I was going with this, but going back to it's like, you're still teaching in the zone of
Proximal development.
Proximal development. Yeah, I don't know. So that's why I was talking. You know where I'm going with that? I feel like I lost my train of thought there,
Okay.
and that was bad. But
I feel like I followed the train, so that's fine.
followed the train.
Follow the train.
Okay.
I'm on board.
Do you have something, Rachel?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Were you on Thursday?
We're
Kind of going everywhere.
We're not really on anything.
Wherever.
if you here, I have one. I had just random question, I guess, on the first step for you, Rachel. With you said that the first language acquisition is becoming a part of the universal grammar. Why isn't second language acquisition part of universal grammar, I guess? I was confused about that.
Is she frozen?
Yeah, she's
Hang
frozen.
on.
Oh, the connection's really bad. I can't really hear you.
Can you hear me, Esther?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good. Good. Okay, so my question was, so second language acquisition is becoming a part of universal grammar, is what you talked about. Why isn't second language acquisition becoming a part of universal grammar?
Why is it becoming?
Yeah, why
Why is
isn't
it not?
Why is it not?
Oh. Hold on. Sorry, I haven't even looked at my post.
That's a hard question.
I don't know. I was trying to.
Yeah. It's a hard question. If you don't know the answer, that's okay. I was just confused why they would agree that first language acquisition was a thing, but second language acquisition wasn't. Is
No.
more my question.
Oh, right. Sorry. Because like the first language, that's when you grew up, and that's when you're starting to develop your universal grammar through your parents and your environment.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas your second language that you're learning, you don't go through that. You're only learning it. You're learning it based off the structure and the content, rather than growing up and having it here and all around you. So, I guess because like for your first language, you hear it absolutely everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's more universal rather than trying to learn a new language where it's not everywhere. I guess.
I feel like with acquisition though, that is like being
Yeah.
immersed.
Yeah. Immersed.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm agreeing with what you're saying and what other people might think, but I'm disagreeing with what other people think. I think acquisition, no matter first or second language, is the same trail,
I think so.
I guess.
Yeah.
Like, as you're
See what
growing
I
up,
mean
it might
there.
seem smoother because that's your first language and it is all around you. It's that submersion. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know.
Right, yes.
You
I
wanna?
also think that there's somewhere in the post who talked about one of my things talked about differences in languages
Yeah.
and how there can be a big block there because, or I think even Krashen talked about it, about talking about like French and how the grammar is different for French than English, and so like we try to apply what we know about English sentence structures,
Yeah.
and in French they are like backwards, man.
Yeah.
They are weird. I don't even understand. I took 3 years of French. I still don't understand it. Like, okay. And I think that because we're always trying to apply what we know
Mm-hmm.
to the unknown, there can be a disconnect there.
Okay.
And so that's why sometimes when you meet someone who's a second language learner that, you know, is pretty proficient and they can talk, but you hear them making the mistakes.
Yes.
Like, they say like is instead of are, you know,
Yeah.
like instead of using the plural, they say is or something, you know, like,
Those subtleties that you notice
Yeah.
because it's your first language,
It's-
but
yeah.
not theirs.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Which likewise, I'm sure that like if I went to France and I had 3 years, mine would not be perfect either. So
Not
I
even
totally
close.
can understand that.
Not even close.
I have a question for you, Jordan.
Yeah.
And it can be posted to the group too, so like everyone jump in. How do you think you're going to help your students balance the use of their monitor? Because you were talking about how it can be helpful or it can be a disadvantage. So how do you think you're going to help balance that?
Well, I feel like for when you're having discussion and like group discussion is a place where you probably shouldn't have a super big use of the monitor, because I know that in the examples at least, I think it was Yvonne even was saying that.
Just go with it.
Yeah, just do it. Just say what you know it. You know what you're trying to say, and the majority of what you're saying is gonna be correct. But if you like if you're too concerned with like
Over
the
analyzing.
right
Totally.
with like the
Grammar.
grammar and everything, then that's when you're gonna mess up. And then when you probably should be using it more is when you're trying to like express grammar rules and things like that. When,
Like
in,
DOL.
writing. Yeah.
Can we take a step back? This was my question for you. I didn't really understand what a monitor is. Is it a person, or is it like something that's in your brain?
Right. It's something in your brain.
Right.
So,
Oh, okay. I was
yeah.
really-
So it's so I think it was Yvonne. I don't know. You guys didn't read this. I'm sorry. This was my post. I'm sorry. I'm like referring to things that you didn't read. So she was saying that like some people, for example, if you're bilingual and you're applying for a job in Spanish, and Spanish is your second language, but you are fluent, and you're over using the monitor, then you're not going to say what you need to say because you're too focused on the grammar and like the structure of what you're saying. So you're saying that,
So it's
and
like
then
you're monitoring yourself.
Yeah.
then underuse of it is just like, okay, that sounds ridiculous. You didn't apply one grammar rule or anything. So the point of it is to try to find balance where you're like saying what you need to say, and like, yes, you're trying to use grammar rules and things like that, but not being too focused on that in order to be able to produce sentences.
Yeah.
So it's
So
almost like
overuse
that.
of it like stops your production of sentences pretty much because you're just like,
It's like that over or under thinking of like how to incorporate the grammar into language.
Mhm.
So I thought that was really critical because if you like just put it out there, it's like everyone just like be comfortable and say whatever you say. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to judge you, and just have that environment. Like you could focus and build up so many social skills that way. And of course, it's not going to be like grammatically correct, but like you can build on that in other ways. Like having that social interaction, I thought would be like really important. So I really liked reading with a monitor in your post.
I like that. I thought that was interesting.
yeah, it is pretty interesting. Huh? That's weird.
I have a question for Caitlin about set 3.
Okay.
Okay, so what I wrote here is that I agree that acquisition is like super important, but do you think that learning is still holds a vital role?
Will you read that? Because it's the same thing.
It's not the same thing. Yeah, do you think it's still a vital role when learning a second
No,
language?
I definitely think learning is still really vital because
Mhm.
you need to be able to learn. But when I was reading through all the things I had to read for Section 8, it was focusing so much on acquisition, and I was just literally sitting there in Starbucks and going like, amen, like that's great. So I was just having this.
Here, I got it.
Oh, I got it. Okay. I think that's still recorded, so I just can start. I don't know. But just like when you focus on acquiring that language, you're focusing on more subtleties, and like I feel like you adapt to know it better. But learning a language too, I think if you have a good foundation, I guess I was trying to think of it if I didn't have a good foundation in a second language, then acquisition would be the way I would go about it.
Mhm.
But you're still gonna incorporate both.
Mhm.
But learning, I was thinking that like, oh, I learned Spanish in high school.
Yeah.
And so like I had that foundation. But if I went to Mexico next year or next summer, I would not be. I would have to build up so many skills,
Mhm.
and it wouldn't. Like I was just thinking about it like that. So I think
It's
it's a
when-
good balance.
When I was reading your post, I was thinking about what Krashen said about you need both, because he said something like, when someone wants to learn a new language, we tell them to go to France. Go learn a new language.
that's the bad advice.
So that's bad advice because you don't have any sort of background. When you go there, you're gonna be like, excuse me, what are you saying?
Yeah,
You need like some sort of like
you need that
background
foundation.
knowledge. Yeah, that foundation of a classroom.
Wasn't
of
it
grammar.
this one of the videos that was saying like the point of taking a language class in high school is to prepare you to go out into the world and to acquire more.
But lots of people
So-
don't do that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But he was pretty much saying like that's the point because you're a teenager and you probably haven't ventured out into the world, but after this you probably eventually will or something. And so to have like the foundation of like the rules and a little bit of acquisition and like
Totally.
and a little bit of experience then like prepares you to be
To fully immerse
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
into the
No, so I think like
environment.
I was just trying to think about it if I didn't have any skills, but like for like high school, definitely like I learned I have that foundation, so if I went, I feel like I could pick it up
Okay, yeah.
pretty quickly. I just don't have the means to really go to Mexico or Spain, even though
How
I'd
do you
love
think
to.
that applies to our English language learners then?
Ooh, that would be difficult
Mhm.
because like they're leaving their environment to come to America for the most part.
They don't have the background, most of them.
and you're still trying to build up that background. So I would definitely like still need to have it in a balance because you're gonna still be like acquiring and learning your first language, and then you're gonna want to focus even more so on acquiring and learning your second language as English. So definitely keep it in balance, but I would just acquisition. I was just like, yes.
And it's hard
Yes.
because with ELLs, like they don't get like when we learn a language in high school, it's like, okay, we are only learning and then we can choose to acquire later. But
Exactly.
they're like half learning, like half acquiring because they're in America and people are speaking English.
And they have to do it all right
You know what
now.
I mean?
And
Yeah, it's just everything happening at once instead of like the two-step kind of process
Totally.
that he suggests.
And there's so much pressure with just having all that focus on it, being like, I need to learn this really well because I need to go say it right after I leave this lesson. I'm working with my ELL teacher.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's just
a lot of
pressure,
pressure for sure.
stress. What other questions do you guys have? That was so cool. You guys asked the same question.
Yeah. She's like, what?
I have one for Rachel, I guess for everyone too, but
Rachel.
so you were talking about like the different aspects that determine how well someone can like learn a language, and some of them are their background or like their family and things like that. So I was just a question would be like, how could teachers go? Oh,
I asked that same question.
how could teachers?
Oh, we lost connection.
Hang on.
Rachel, are you alive?
Wait, your video's off.
Well, hers is too.
Hello.
Sorry, whenever you move the camera a lot, the connection goes really bad.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
We'll leave it like that.
I was just gonna say, how do you think teachers can go about providing like as relevant and or as like culturally relevant materials and also grade level or like whatever level they're at in their language learning as possible, since everyone kind of learns language differently based on their background. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I feel like
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I think just trying to get different teaching, what am I trying to say? Different activities to try and help different learners because they're all going to be learning at a different rate. And different type of activities, kind of like we were talking about earlier, how we can have maybe speaking tests as well as written tests or group tests or just different types of environments, I guess, to make them all feel comfortable. But I don't know. I mean, what do you guys think about it?
I thought it was interesting because we always talk about different styles of learners, but this kind of talked about why they're learning differently, and it's based on their background and their family and things like that. So I guess just and then it also was talking about how it's pretty hard to, with ELL families, it's kind of hard to stay in contact and collaboration. But I think that would probably be the best way to try to understand their background and get culturally relevant materials and stuff like that.
So,
Oh, okay. I'm ready to wrap up whenever you have.
Okay.
Yeah.
we should wrap up soon.
Yeah.
But I had a question for Lexi.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of from set one.
Okay.
So you're talking, just so you remember your post, because I know that's really hard to remember what all of them I posted. But it was about the sociology and the language and how it relates to language acquisition.
Okay.
And I thought it was really interesting, and it made me laugh really hard because you're talking about the baby talk and how parents use immature language with their kids.
Yes.
But then you said that you think that language acquisition really happens when kids get to grade school. Do you mean it happens before grade school or during grade school or during school, that environment? Because I don't know if I agree
With what I said in my post.
Yeah.
Okay, let me explain this further. I think I was more thinking, so language acquisition happens, yes, when you're a baby, when you're a kid and you're learning the language. I think the part that you were reading, I think it's amazing that kids can hear this baby talk that their parents give them, and then when they get to school, people are talking to them in more of a mature, formal way, and so these kids, when they grow up, they're not talking about I want my din din. They they mature, their language matures. So that's more of what I was talking about.
Yeah, but what I was thinking that I didn't agree with, I think that acquisition is subconscious. And so it doesn't have to be that they're talking to the baby. I think they hear it from their parents talking to each other, or their parents talking to other children, or to just other people in the environment in general. And that's where I think they get the acquisition of the more mature language.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, I agree with
That's
that.
what I was thinking.
I think
That's
it's
a really
like-
good perspective.
It's the whole foundation. I think it's din,
Yeah.
dinner, time to eat dinner. It's just it's progressive. So I think
Yeah.
that's
It's maturation.
yeah, exactly. Perfect.
Good
I love
job.
that. Good job, guys.
Yay.
Any more questions?
No, I'm completely
Okay.
fine.
Rachel, you good?
I'm pretty good.
Rachel, you have any questions?
I just sounded like an old person.
Are you good, Rachel?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye.
Alright.
Bye, Rachel.
Yeah.